Over the last decade, there's been an explosion of people getting into commercial bluefin tuna fishing, and it's because they watched the TV show Wicked Tuna and they said, man, that looks like I can make a lot of money. What do you think about that, gentlemen?
It depends on your definition of a lot of money.
Depends on your definition. It can make you rich with memories, but probably not so much rich in the wallet. In this video, we're going to do an entire breakdown. We just got done our December season off of Virginia Beach, where we caught 5 bluefin tuna and sold 5 bluefin tuna. We're going to give you all of our numbers in terms of what our costs were as a commercial fishing vessel and how much money we brought in from the fish, and therefore how much these guys get to take home. And it's going to give you a real sense for things. We're as honest as they come. That's why many of you enjoy these types of videos. We make them every year when we go through bluefin season. And this was our first December season. And this one particular video, instead of just me and the professor, Captain Ron Edwards here, we've got whom I like to refer to as the magician, Doug Gray. And Doug is our first mate on here, but he's also the person that makes all of our rods and many of our baits with Killer Bee Customs. So you want to make sure you check out his company if you need a custom rod, Killer Bee Customs on Facebook. And so we've got the numbers. Let's first talk about what are the primary expenses that we have to consider when we're commercial bluefin fishing. Doug, go ahead and get us started on that.
The biggest expense is fuel. We know when we leave the dock that we're going to have a substantial investment in fuel just to get out there to the fishing grounds and back.
Now, what's interesting is, depending on where you are in the U.S., and the Pacific bluefin market has actually been picking up quite a bit too. And so all these numbers vary, but there's a difference in how far you have to go from whether it's Gloucester, Mass, or whether it's Morehead City, or whether it's Hatteras. All these different places, there's a different distance that you have to go. And depending on the time of the year, that can change as well. We were going out of Virginia Beach. Normally during the summertime, you have to make a huge run out of Virginia Beach. But for this December season, it was actually really close, which made a huge difference. And, you know, in fact, Professor, this was your idea, like, hey, I think we can catch, because this was not something that had commercially been done in Virginia Beach for quite some time. They said about a decade. You called me one day and you said, you know, it didn't go great for us down Hatteras last year in December. Why don't we try Virginia Beach? You said, I think we can get us a buyer, and I think we can catch them out of Virginia Beach. What made you say that? Because in hindsight, that was a great move for us.
It was. When we went to Morehead, the 23 December season, and it was a learning curve for us.
Yeah.
Because it was a lot of drift fishing, and some center console boats had figured out the live bait slow troll thing, and we just can't troll that slow. Our boat's a lot louder, and we figured it out in the end. But the season was so short. It's a long ways down there. We weren't very successful at it. So Doug and I were talking one day. We just wanted to go fishing. You know what I mean? We wanted to get in on this December fishery, and we just came up with the idea of let's try Virginia Beach, and it worked out. I mean, Doug has a lot of connections in Virginia Beach. We've all got connections to Virginia because that's where we're from, and it just worked out. You know, Bailey at Rudy's, he gave us a slip there, and treated us great. You know, we had a little apartment there and everything else, so it worked out fantastic. You know, and that was we just both wanted to go fishing.
Yeah.
You know,
well, it did work out, and we're hoping that this will set off a new bluefin tuna rush, if you will, like a gold rush for December. Not that we want everybody in the world joining us in Virginia Beach, but It's probably going to happen. I mean,
it already has happened.
You know, the word is clearly out. But the fact that we were going out of Virginia Beach meant that we were traveling how far, roughly?
Well, on an average, it was anywhere from 20 to 28 miles. And so we did not have to go to the continental shelf to catch these fish like we normally do here out of Oregon Inlet. These fish were closer to in about 12 to 15 fathoms of water. And so that made it great, you know, because we save a lot of money on fuel.
Yeah.
And when we're commercial fishing, we tend to fish a little differently. Like we're not going super fast to and from. We leave a little earlier, you know what I mean? And who cares if we're out later, you know, we don't run the boat so hard and try to get pinch every penny we can, you know.
So because we were going out of Virginia Beach and only going 20 to 30 miles, and we didn't have a 10-mile run just to get to the inlet, stone's throw from the inlet in Virginia Beach. Yeah. Because of that, we were using 50% or less fuel than we normally use here in the Outer Banks.
Yeah, our average trip was like 70 or 75 gallons of fuel.
Whereas here in the Outer Banks, when we commercial fish or we just go on a charter, 160, 170 gallons?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so really, really big difference. Okay, so fuel is one of those majors that you have to consider. What are some of the other expenses that we have to be aware of when we're doing this commercial fishing that goes into our bottom line here, Doug?
Sure. Miscellaneous tackle. You're going to lose some stuff. You're going to have to replace things. You have to buy lures, later material, all the fine, the small things, hooks, crimps, all of that, and that adds up at the end of the day. I mean, we had roughly $200 in miscellaneous tackle.
Just miscellaneous tackle, yeah.
And then
outside of what we already had bought. Because we had all of our gear for commercial fishing.
Correct. Yeah, that's just the terminal tackle, hooks, lures, extra lures, and leader material, which doesn't last forever. We have to replace that frequently.
So we'll add up all these numbers at the end. We'll mention each one at the end. So we've got fuel, we've got tackle. What a couple other major expenses?
Well, a case of bait. We have to buy the ballyhoo.
So the ballyhoo,
purchase a case of bait. And that's $192.
Yeah. So we got the ballyhoo, that is a consideration. You're going to have to get bait, and so most are using these ballyhoo, and they're not getting any cheaper. And then we've, of course, got the dockage and living, right?
Right. We have to have lodging. We have to have a place to stay. We have to have a place to put the boat.
Yeah, and that can really vary. So let's just do the quick numbers on our total costs here. So for dockage and living expenses, and this is bare bones, while we were there in Virginia Beach, how much did we spend?
We had $935 for ice, dockage, and lodging.
All right, ice, dockage, and lodging. Perfect. And for fuel, we spent how much?
$2,100 in fuel.
$2,100. So you can figure out, what that was. And which, by the way, the total number of days we went out fishing was
8 days.
8 days. So this is in the context of 8 days we went commercial fishing. Next year, we'll probably go more than that. But this is 8 days for 5 fish here, all right? So we spent $935 for the dockage and the living and the ice. We've got $2,100 for the fuel. For the bait, we've got $192. And for the tackle, again, we've got $200. So the total for that, just our like bare bones expenses of what we had for the 8 commercial days was
$3,427.
So $3,427. Now we've got another video where we broke down what we made exactly per fish, and this shocks a lot of people. Professor, I'll have you talk about that. But our average, we sold 5 total fish, and the average price per pound, when all was said and done, was
$6.02.
$6.02 is
what we got paid.
It's what we got paid. It's not the $20, $25, $30 that you see on Wicked Tuna. It is definitely not that. And so if you do that, the total amount that we got paid in checks from the buyer for our 5 fish was
$9,628.
So $9,628. So that leaves us with a rough profit of
$6,201.
$6,201. And so, Professor, how does this get divvied up here? Because some people might be saying, hey, I want to, I'd like to start doing this. How much do you give your crew? How much do you keep for the boat? Everybody's different. There's not a set answer for this. And so how do we do it here on Speechless?
Well, here, and it works, like you said, all different kinds of ways. It all depends on how many owners you have in the boat, who owns the boat, stuff like that. But the way we do it here, and we're fortunate to be able to do it this way, you and I own the boat together, and but you just want the boat to have a share. So it was the boat, me, and Doug, 3 shares.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so in this case, we split it. We split that $6,200 into 3 entities,
Correct.
essentially,
Yeah.
because the boat is, of course, taking on a wear and tear and all that. Now, somebody might hear that and they say, okay, let's just be hypothetical. Let's say Doug ends up with, I'm just going to say a number, $2,000.
Right.
And that $2,000 was for 8 days of fishing. Now, somebody might hear that and say, 8 days of fishing, $2,000, that was really good. Now, let's just take a quick step back, though, because if you take those 8 days and we put it a total number of hours worked, the average number of hours worked per day, let's try to be as realistic as possible here, right? Most days started and stopped at what time when you were commercial fishing?
Well, I mean, it varied, but I would say we didn't have to go very far, so we didn't leave super early, but we like 5:30, and we wouldn't get back and get done at the earliest until 5:30 that afternoon. You know what I mean? So at a minimum, it's a 12-hour day.
So I'm going to do the math right here, with everybody, just so we have it. So let's just say that at a minimum, you did 12 hours a day.
Yeah, and some were shorter, some were longer. I mean, sometimes we fished from sun up to sundown. And that ended up being more like a 14-hour day. You know what I mean?
Right.
But then there were some days where we caught a fish and we were back in and cleaned up before it got dark, you know?
And this also doesn't really include the fact that on off days, you're still doing things.
Oh, yeah.
You have to do your baits and your equipment and cleaning. It's just...
I mean, while we were there, we did not fish one day, but the one day that we did not fish, I had to change oil and fuel filters
That's
and stuff
5 hours.
like that. Minimum, yeah.
So if you say 12 times 8, that's 96. Okay, so that's 96 hours that you put into this. And so if we say, hypothetically, that if one of these guys got paid $2,000 and you divide that by 96, that equals $20 an hour. $20 an hour, roughly, is what you're getting paid on that. And so the moral of the story is nobody here is getting rich. Whenever we do this, though, people say to us, why do we do it? Doug, if you had to answer that for you, why? Because you love this more than, I mean, you just have a love for this that is very unique. So why do you continue to do it year after year?
I like catching something bigger than me.
I don't know, Doug. That ain't too hard.
Well, no, that's relative also. But multiple times bigger than me. How about that?
There is something to that. One thing that you've always said is, to me, surprised me about you early on, Professor, was you were like, it's not so much about reeling it in and feeling the force of the fish. I want to know I tricked that fish with my bait. I want to know that he was convinced by me to take this bait.
Right.
That was really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Which is why, correct me if I'm wrong, for you, the thrill is watching the bite.
It is.
You love watching the bite, which I just didn't get until I started going offshore.
Yeah. And it's a different world, than where we're from and how we were brought up fishing and stuff like that. But it's just, getting that fish, being in the fish's environment and tricking it and just being close to it with the boat and, getting over top of them just right and just fooling the fish. The thrill of the hunt,
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're loving this, and we hope you love it. And we're going to continue to bring as much education, real education, honest behind the scenes as well. We want you to know the highs and the lows. That's part of this channel. There's good days and there's bad days.
Yeah, there is. Now, keep in mind with those numbers, I mean, that's just like that short season. That doesn't include all the rods, reels, all the commercial gear we have to have, the life rafts, the survival suits. I mean, it balloons terrible. So, if you're thinking that $2,000 is a lot of money for 8 days and the boat share $2,000, it's kind of, it's really upside down.
Yeah, I mean, we've been in this 4 years. We've lost money every single year.
Yeah.
We have not turned a profit. But hopefully, as this brand continues to build, we're building something bigger than just fishing. Because that's really the only way we're going to just make this a very profitable venture is if we build an extraordinary brand, which you're a part of. We appreciate you. Make sure you check out this guy's custom rods. That's Killer Beak Customs. And come fishing with us. We actually have openings during this January, February season in terms of some charters as well. So if you're interested in that, especially during February. Usually the commercial season is closed. You can come and have a trip with these guys, and it's just unbelievable. The bluefin tuna fishing in February
It gets
on the
pretty
Outer
good.
Banks
Yeah.
is something to behold. And you can keep a short fish as well, which is a lot of fun. So until the next time, everyone, stay salty.